right, man, we're going to talk about culture. And, one thing I'll say about culture is I think it's a word that's been thrown around so loosely that it's lost its I don't know if it's lost its power, but I think in some aspects it has, because it's a word we just throw around. If something's messed up in a football program, hey, change the culture, change the culture. They need to change the culture. You hear that word thrown around so much, but I don't know that people really know what culture is. And what I'm going to give you today is bare bones foundation. If I walked into some place right now that was not winning, that had no foundation, I'm gonna give you the bare bones of building a culture, building a platform. And I want to, because they young men 16, 17, or I'm sorry, 17, 18, 19, and they teach them character. They teach them pride. They teach them esprit de corps. They teach them self-image, self-esteem. They teach them these things, and they teach them that they're a part of a special culture, a band of brothers. If two Marines meet walking down the sidewalk, if one's 89 and one's 19, Semper Fi, brother. Semper Fi, always faithful. You see, that's a culture. The Marine Corps is a culture. It's the biggest fraternity in the history of mankind. But now, don't we want that kind of a culture with the football team? You're walking down the hallway, hey, brother, Razorbacks, or whatever your key word is, or whatever your culture brings you. So to develop a culture, you have to have a foundation to stand on. And I always do this. Anytime you go into somewhere, you need to figure out where you're at, and you need to figure out their past, because you're going to have to build it on the past. If they don't have a past, start one. And that we'll talk about that in a little bit in this lecture. But I always give them a slogan, like something that's going to be on everything that we print football on. It's going to say a winning tradition, or whatever your slogan is. So if you're going to have a culture, it has to every day. Hey, Panama, just giving you this as an example. This is a PowerPoint I worked up for a job interview, which I knew the situation I was, and I want to change the culture. So let's talk some culture right now. If I can get this thing, there we go. What is it? What is culture? Most people throw this word around and they don't even know what they're talking about. But if I want to change a culture, I'm going to have to know a little bit about what I'm dealing with. Have they won before? They winning now? Where are they at? Because if you're going to change the culture, you got to know what you're dealing with. And you have to have a plan. And I want to tell you, I define a lot of things. And here's the reason why I define a lot of things. I think we need to know the definition of what we're talking about. We tell kids their whole lives, hey, be a leader. Hey, act like you got some character. Do we ever teach them what the definition of being a leader is? Do we ever give them a job to teach them how to do it? Do we ever teach them what character means? Do we ever teach them what the foundations of characters that we're teaching are? And you got to keep things simple, my friends, because, okay, if I walked into and I'm not going to throw any schools' names out here, because there's a lot of great programs, great schools that do things right, have great cultures, win as much as anybody wins. And I'm going to tell you, there's also the other side of it too, where there's mediocre to below, and there's a lot more mediocre to below than there is winners. The winners are a small percent. There's a lot more mediocre to below than there are winners, because they don't have a culture. They don't have a plan. So when you walk into somewhere, you have to have a plan. And what is a plan? A plan, like my plan going into the place that I'm going into now, is to develop a culture and cultivate it. That means water the flowers every day. So what is a culture? Let's talk about culture, the word culture. A culture is a set of shared attitudes, values, and goals. Shared attitudes and values and goals. Shared attitudes, what is attitude? It's how you think, how you act, and how you feel. We have to get these guys thinking the same, acting the same, and feeling the same. because they go through a day of school and homework and test, and then Susie broke up with them. But when they show up at your place, it's got to be the same every day. That culture's got to be established. When we get here, this is how it's going to roll. This is how we're going to think. This is how we're going to act. This is how we're going to feel. And you're going to do it until you feel that way. You're going to fake it until you make it if you have a bad day and a good culture. A set of shared attitudes, values, and goals. What's a value? A value is expected standards and behaviors of an organization. We value the fact that we do things right. We value the fact that we show up on time. We value the fact that we believe nobody is going to work harder than we do. We share those values. Our values is that we treat others with respect and we respect ourselves. Our value is we have high character. That means our character is that we're honest, and we're going to get into all that. Our character is that we're going to show up on time and be dependable. Our character is that nobody is going to outwork us. So you have to know what culture is. It's a set of shared attitudes, shared values, and shared goals. Basically, it's a bunch of people believing in the same things and doing it every day. And that's a culture. Culture takes so much to develop. So let's talk about it. What's a goal? A goal is the focus of which our efforts are directed. So if we have a goal, say if you walk into a great culture, okay, they have goals on the wall. They don't have 15 of them. And what I was getting to a minute ago is when you talk about culture and great programs with culture, they know exactly what they believe in, what their principles are, what they're founded on. It's not a bunch of crap. I walk into places and I see all these manuals and these deals on the wall of all these things. Well, how much of those do your coaches know? How much of those do your kids know? You got to bare bones teach culture and simplify it. It's not all this fancy crap that's just a sign on the wall or a page in some manual. Culture's real. And if you go in some place and you want all these fancy manuals and all these signs on the wall of all this stuff that nobody remembers, nobody puts into action every day, and those things don't become a part of that person's life, that's just smoke and mirrors, and it's crap, and it ain't culture. And I'll teach you what culture is right here if I can get this thing to work. You walk into some place, you're going to establish a culture. You better know the first thing you have to do is build a foundation. You're pouring a slab to build that house. Let me say that again. When you walk into somewhere, you better understand you're pouring a slab to build the house. What are the principles that you want to build this culture on? I've came up with 3 principles, and I think it covers everything in football and life. And I'll go over them with you. You see, coaches, and this is before we'll talk about staffing a culture. You see, it's hard to build a culture in a lot of ways, and it's easy in a lot of ways. But one of the hardest things I think it takes for guys to understand is that when you are set out to establish a culture, it ain't about you. It's about how many men I can get to go the same direction. Just staff first. The coaches better know why they're there every day and what they're there for every day. And really what I mean by that is I got to show up with the purpose. I got to know that everything that I do every day as a coach means something in this program. And if I don't do the things that I do every day, this program ain't going to roll. Every coach has to know exactly why they're there, what they're doing, and what their purpose of their jobs are, man. If I don't do ABC, man, this program don't roll. If I don't show up on time, the weight room don't get unlocked. And then we have mass chaos. Everybody has to know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. Your coaches are the most important thing in your culture. The ego in this business is something that I've really ran from the last 2 years when I really started becoming aware of who I was as a coach. But the thing that I really built more of my foundation the last 2-3 years on is that you don't do it by yourself. If you don't have good dudes around you, you ain't going nowhere. I don't care at what level. It seems like Nick Saban sure has really good guys popping up as his coordinators over and over and over and over. So the first thing in culture, we need to get some dudes on board. And those guys that are on board, they got to know simple little things that we believe in, that we teach every day, that we reinforce every day, that we cultivate every day. And the first thing, the first principle I believe on building that foundation of culture is truth. If I lie to you, you ain't gonna trust me. And if you don't trust me, we can't have a relationship. And if we can't have a relationship, we can't have a culture, because what we have is a bunch of people that don't trust each other. In the greatest team sport in the history of mankind, you cannot have people that don't trust each other. And if you don't tell the truth, they'll never trust each other. And if you don't trust each other, there's never going to be relationships. And when 1, 2, 3, 4 people don't trust each other, that's 8 people. And that's 8 broken relationships in your locker room. That may be 2 or 3 broken relationships in your staff. You have to be honest. You have to tell the truth, no matter how hard it is. It all starts with the truth. Teaching men and young men how to tell the truth every day in everything, and become aware of every time they tell a little fib or a lie, because we all lie. And we don't even know it or mean to sometimes, but we got to start becoming aware of truth if we're going to have a foundation of our program. It's truth. Tell the truth about where we are, where we're going, and what we got to do to get there. The truth about everything that comes out of your mouth every day. We have to be honest with these kids. And it's hard these days, because honesty with men these days, honesty with kids these days, it's not easy. Because why? Because they get their feelings hurt when you tell the truth. And the truth's uncomfortable. But if you're going to build a culture, you better start the truth about everything. It ain't okay if you didn't make that block over and over and over. It ain't okay if you didn't complete your assignment or taking on that block over and over and over. The truth is, if you don't do it, we're going to get somebody that will. The truth is the truth in everything. Because if you don't tell the truth in even little things, people aren't going to trust you. And if they don't trust you, they won't play for you. And they won't play for each other. It's all about the truth, no matter what it is, football or life. The foundation of a great culture starts with truth. Because once we're all truthful, we can trust each other. And when we trust each other,
Alert
we can
from
develop
Google
a
Chrome.
relationship.
Alpha Dam.
I don't know what that is. So the next thing we move on, after truth, the principles of building it is character. We have to teach these kids good character. And here's why we teach them character. Because we're there to build good men. If we don't teach them how to be good men, if we don't correct things that they're doing that they can't do in the real world, that will get them in trouble in the real world, will get them fired in the real world. If we don't do this, we're cheating them. We're cheating them. You got to teach character. And character is the mental and moral values of an individual. The mental and moral
Alert
values
from
of an
Google
individual.
Chrome. Triathlon to
That's
rent.
character. That's all character is. The mental and moral values of an individual. We have to teach that. You know why? Like the old saying, football don't teach character, it reveals it. And their character at some point in a game, in practice, in the weight room, in off season, in the summer, in the spring, in the fall, is going to get tested. Their character is going to get tested at some point. And if we're not teaching it, they're going to fail the test. And what is the test? Well, the test might be some kid in their grill all night, throwing punches at their head, trying to hold them on the line of scrimmage out that receiver, and they got to keep their cool. Same kids running them out of bounds, just tackle them under the bench. Nobody's calling it. They got to keep their cool. It don't come without good character. And we're going to talk about all these things because I'm not one of those guys that are going to come on here and talk about football and give you all these words and slogans and analogies and mottos and not teach you what they are. Because there's a lot of things that are important about culture, but the principles in which you build it upon are the most important. And we build it on truth. We're there to build relationships. We're in this program to build relationships as coaches, as players. That's the truth. We're here to build relationships, and it all comes from the truth. We're going to teach you how to be a good man. We're going to make sure you have high character. We're here to build good men and mental toughness. And I love mental toughness. Woo! And you know what? There's a little bit of mental toughness that comes from just being mentally tough as I mean, just being who you are, being around, whoever you grew up around. Maybe you had a tough dad or a tough grandpa or somebody that cultivated some toughness into your life as a young man or young woman. But that's a small percentage. You see, the job that we have is to build mental toughness. We're coaching a game that requires mental toughness. And I've really grown in a lot of ways with mental toughness over the years of being a head coach, because I know what it is. I've been fortunate enough to have a frame of reference for what mental toughness is. I was a Marine. I know that there's nothing that you can put me through that I'm gonna cower. I'll die before I walk away. Well, football's nearly the same way. They're not gonna die, but they gotta fight. They gotta fight. See you later, baby. They gotta fight through some tough stuff. They gotta fight in the game, and it may not work out their way. And then they gotta get up and do it again and do it again and do it again. It's all mental toughness. That's why I like a lot of tough football these days, especially at the high school level, where we still play tough football, because in tough football, you can go out there and I'm going to see how mentally tough you are, especially when I got a great culture.
Are you riding the bus to Reagan, or are you figuring what's happening with that?
And if I got a great culture, the mental toughness is going to be the thing that takes us to the next level of culture. Because when kids know and understand, and they start becoming mentally tough, their lives change. And there's a way to go about making kids mentally tough, and not very many of us know how to do it. You see, we pull off of kids when they get a little bit tired. We got to learn to push kids through the walls. And there's a reason that we do that. That's a whole different lecture that we did last time on this deal, our boot camp lecture. But the mental toughness is a whole nother deal. It's a whole nother deal. We are here to overachieve. And it really makes me sick in this game. And I want to talk about this because this is culture stuff. When you guys get in your office, you coaches, and some kids just maybe not up to par, or he's not the best athlete, or he's not this, or he's not that. When you get in that office, you'll know what kind of culture you got, the way everybody's talking about that kid. Are they trying to help him and reinforce that, or are they just giving up? He's a drill killer. You got to try to find a way to make everybody on that team in a great culture important. And everybody can become mentally tough. I ain't saying they'll all become starters or great players or even anything on the field. I'm just saying mental toughness, it don't discriminate. It's a disease that everybody can catch. Everybody should catch mental toughness in a good culture. And if you're not making everybody mental tough, you're not developing a good culture. And guys, anything you hear on here that you want me to cover, I got PowerPoints on our boot camp. There's even videos. If you want anything on build mental toughness, I think I'm one of the best at it. Matter of fact, I know I am. You got to have a mission statement. Like I said, it's a PowerPoint I did, for a job I was trying to get. Football at Panama is to promote academics, develop character, and afford each student athlete an opportunity to be successful. It covers it all. Football is to promote academics, develop character, and afford each student athlete the opportunity to be successful. And I'll tell you where this plays in. You have to give a kid an opportunity to work on all phases of his career as a high school football player. What's the first phase? Academics. Well, part of our mission statement is that football is to promote academics. And if they are not eligible, they can't play. So you better have study hall. Okay. What's the next thing that a kid has to overcome? His body. Okay. In a good culture, you better give that kid a job he can do. And even if he's the worst one on the team at the job, give him a job he can do. And then give him an opportunity through skills and drills and off season and summer and spring. Set your practices, your off seasons, everything up to let these kids get better at their job. Not just show up in August and start running plays or doing these drills. There's a way you can do it in every association with every rule. Make sure kids' academics are up to par. If they're not, help him develop. Give him a job and help him develop the skill to become the best he can be at that job. And another whole subject is B players. Great cultures develop their B players. On another talk, but that's what I want you to understand. Give them a job they can do. The biggest mistake coaches make is they don't care about these 2, 3, 4 players. They don't give them a job they can do. And then they're not a part of the program. Then they're dragging drills down. Then they're dragging practices down. Then they're dragging games down. If everybody's not important, you need to do something else. If you can't inspire kids, you need to do something else. You're not developing culture. And inspiration is a big deal. Anybody can give up on a kid. Anybody can give up on a program. To inspire, that's a football coach. That's a coach. You got to inspire. If you're not lifting others up, you're in the wrong business. Let me say that again. If you're not lifting others up, you're in the wrong business. You have to have a mission statement. And your mission statement has to explain how you're going to carry out your plan of developing your culture. Because the platform of our culture, as we said a minute ago, the platform of our culture is truth, character, and mental toughness. Truth, character, and mental toughness. If you want to know what we're here to do, let me see if I can get this thing back up. We're here to build honest men of high character that are mentally tough. That's it. And if you turn out good men, I said this when I was a young coach, I knew it then. If you turn out good men, you ain't got to worry about football games. They'll take care of themselves. Standards and behaviors. You have to have standards. You have to have physical standards all through your program and keeping it simple. Like I said, our coaches are going to know truth, character, mental toughness. That's what we're doing every day. We're making sure they're honest. We're making sure they have high character. They show up on time. They respect themselves and others, and they're dependable. That's our character, and that's another slide. We got to make sure they got high character. We got to make sure they got high standards. They don't talk about going to the second round. We're talking about winning a state championship all the time. And you know what? When you fall short, you get up and you start over, just like you have the same opportunity to win the title as the next guy. That's culture. And once that stuff starts taking over year after year after year after year, it's like a snowball, man. And it just builds and it just builds. And you wake up 7, 10, 20 years later, and you're sitting on a dynamite keg that's been going off for 20 years. That's culture, man. That's culture. Most people don't ever build a culture because they don't stay long enough to see it come to fruition. I've been guilty of that. I built one and walked away from it. But it was built. Standards. You got to have standards. You got to have standards. I'm going to give you an example of standards. Every running back, receiver, fullback, H-back, every skill kid that comes into the program, he knows the physical standards that he's got to run a 6-minute 30 mile. He's got to run a 46 or under shuttle run. He's got to bench press his weight and 20%. He's got to do 80 push-ups. He's got to do 80 sit-ups in 2 minutes. He knows the standards. He's got to do 20 pull-ups. That's it. That's what we test on. Those are the standards physically. He's got to do that. His mental standards is he's got to rise up and get through some of the worst human suffering physically that any human has ever went through. Our off season, our boot camp. We're going to figure out how serious you are. And when you make it through that, that's culture. You know why? Because the next group graduate and they start coming around, they see it's doing the same things, the same pain, the same boot camp. And you know what? They get through it. And then they're all 5, 10 years later, they're all downtown sitting at Jimmy's Quick Mart, hanging out on a Saturday night, talking about back in the day where they went through the boot camp. They went through the 2-a-days. They went through all the suffering coach put us through. They went through it. They made it. And that's a culture. That's a culture. I hope it makes sense. That's a culture. When people respect their tradition, respect the standards, respect the behavior. And our behavior is simple. We build good men. We expect everybody affiliated with the program to be first class. Everybody. From the secretary
Alert from Google Chrome.
to the
Tommy.
transportation manager. We expect everybody affiliated with the program to be first class. Period. End of story. And that's standards. Let me keep up with myself here. I've got the screen, but I got all that stuff in there. Developing a staff. When you build a great culture, we talked about this a minute ago. Each coach has to have jobs to do. He has to play an important role in your program. Every coach. If you can't find jobs for your coaches to do, I don't know what kind of program you're in, because there's a lot of stuff going on in football, and you need everybody. You need to delegate authority to everybody. Everybody. You have to get them coaches involved. They are important. They are important. They're the most important thing in your program besides your everybody's. I'm sorry to say it. Not everybody's of equal importance. The head coach has to make sure the whole thing goes. Everything. Like he's standing in the hedge of the circle and he's got to make sure everything functions correctly. And that's not even talking about getting to the game and running the game. He's got to make sure everything functions correctly. Well, them coaches are the pillars that are holding that wall up of that circle. And those coaches all hold their wall up. That's the jobs they do, is their wall. They don't let anybody through their wall. They do their job. They do it well. They respect the culture. And they know, because I got these jobs and these jobs are important to the program, they know how important they are because they feel it every day. You have to give them responsibility. You have to give them responsibility. If you don't give a grown man in your program, a coach, responsibility, don't expect him to do anything to help your program. He has to play a role in that program. Each kid has to play a role in that program. And if you're worth your salt as a leader, they're going to know that you know how important they are in the program. Let me say that again. If you're worth your salt, they're going to know how important they are in the program. And I'll tell you, in this business, guys, and let me just chill out for a minute before we move on. In this business, I've been fortunate enough to screw up. I've been fortunate enough to make mistakes. I've been fortunate enough to make moves I maybe shouldn't have made or should have made. I've been fortunate enough to learn some hard lessons in this business. But I can assure you one thing. The major key to success is the men you put in front of your kids and a good head coach to make sure that they get the greatest high school football experience any kid could have. And I think, let me see, we're on time here. Am I good, Justin?
Yeah, Coach, you got plenty of time, man.
I think the one thing that drives me crazy over the years is that many men that are charged with being, a head football coach, they get to feeling that they can't win or they got a good group or they get a little burnt out. And you know what? I was fortunate, just as many of you were, because you're taking your time to become a better coach, watching these clinics. I was fortunate enough to play for a good man and a great culture. It saved my life. It saved my life. Like many of you, it saved your life. And I see these kids run around some of these little towns, and I really feel sorry for them because they're not getting a great experience. And that's what this is all about. Building a great culture, you're going to win. I learned this, and I hope you guys learn it sooner than later if you haven't already, that this ain't about winning and losing. Sure, we are in a results-oriented business, and I like to win and do not like to lose, and it's a failing of mine that I'm trying to get better at. And I don't want to get real good at it. But every kid deserves a great high school football experience because the game just gives too much. There's too much to get from this game for a kid to go into a program where coaches don't care. It's disorganized. It's a cluster. The kids come in every day and do their own thing or goofing. That ain't culture, my friends. Culture is standards and behaviors. Standards and behaviors. And we'll talk about that. Every coach has to play an important role in the program. Every coach needs to know he matters. I covered all this stuff. A coach that doesn't feel important in your program is a liability to your program. Why? Well, he don't have any responsibility. What's he going to do in his free time? He's going to go downtown and he's going to run your program in the ground. He has to play an important role because he's important. And if he has too much idle time himself, he's going to feel unimportant. And when he feels unimportant, he's going to lash out. And, I'm not hanging every coach that does this because, we speak in this world. We've learned to talk and communicate with gossip. He may not go down there intentionally trying to hang anybody. He just may be bitching and fussing about his role in life and in that program. And if he don't feel he's got an important role, he's not going to promote the program, and he has to promote the program. The key, let's keep this simple. I love simplicity. The key is to teach them all what to do. Give them all a job and teach them what to do. Make them, even if you got, in Oklahoma it's a little different because we have a lower population, and it's there's not just guys beating down your door to be assistant coaches like there was in Texas. It's just a smaller population. It's just a numbers thing. But even if you got a guy that ain't that great, make him feel great. Give him 3 drills, 4 drills, 3 on Monday, 3 on Tuesday, 3 on Wednesday. Master that drill. Give him something to watch when you go to a group session. Give him something to watch when you go to a team session. Give him little jobs that a bunch of little jobs together is a big job. He's got to feel important. If he don't, he's a liability to your program. You got to learn to delegate these responsibilities. If you don't, you're not going to be a good head coach. You're not going to develop a culture. Those dudes in that office are the most important thing to a successful football program. Period. If you go look at great football programs and then look at their coaches, administrators and teachers. You got 100%, 100% communicate with your teachers. If you're establishing a culture and them teachers aren't getting an email twice a week, the beginning of the week and the end, our plan for the week and how we did. Can I help you? Our plan for the week and how we did. Can I help you? Our plan for the week and how we did. Can I help you? Status of the program, status of the program, status of the program. School-wide email. Everybody's involved. Every teacher matters. Every coach matters. Every administrator matters. Everybody in town matters. Every business matters. You want to talk about culture, and I'll probably be getting ahead of myself, but I get so daggum excited about this. It's a bunch of people going the same direction, and you coaches out there that have great cultures, wow, it's great. I don't think there's anything better than laying your head at night knowing that the whole daggum town, the whole city, the whole area, the whole school, everybody's going the same direction. There's nothing sweeter than that as a high school football coach, to know that we're all going the same direction. My high school back home was a power, it was a great tradition, and I've had to watch it dwindle over the years, and it's sad. But what if they were pumping out wins and holding that culture true and doing the things that were done over the years to make that a great place as a town, as a administration, as a board of education, alumni, players, coaches, teachers? What if all them people would get together and say, hey, we're tired of this? It's amazing what can happen if a bunch of people get headed the same direction. And you're always going to have, here's an old rule from the Marine Corps. You're always going to have your 10%. It don't matter what you're doing, what organization, what sport, what business, what anything. You're always going to have your 10% that you could hand them $1 million. You could take their son and get him in the NFL, provide opportunities to help him along. You can give them everything they want. They're always going to complain. You will have your 10%. They just cannot be happy. But I'll take 90% happy any day. Woo! Those 10%, as long as you're winning, everything's going their way, you won't have culture problems, and you'll never have culture problems if you got 90% going the same way. And we always said that in the Marine Corps. There's going to be 10% of these guys that make it through all the rigors of training. They make it all through boot camp. They do all that they're supposed to do. But they can never free themselves from griping and complaining, because that's their mantra that they grew up with. They grew up in that environment. Things don't go their way, bitch and complain. Things don't go their way, it's never their fault. Things don't go their way, just leave, move. It's the geography. I don't belong here. Whatever it is. You're always going to have those people. Block them out. Don't let 10% drag 90% down. That can happen too. That's a whole nother talk. Work with your administration. The biggest failure I see is head coaches, and I've done it. Is not being transparent with your administration, or thinking that they're out to get you, or thinking they're out to cheat you, or thinking that baseball or basketball or band's getting more. Get everybody going the same direction. Doesn't matter. We're here to help kids. That's the biggest thing about culture. We're here to help kids. But coaches, we get our egos going and we think we're here to help us. If these kids don't win, you're not successful. We all want to be successful. I'm not saying I don't want to be successful, but it's the kids first. They got to play the game. They got to win. They got to make the play. They got to be strong enough, fast enough, mentally tough enough. I don't. Yeah, I do. Yeah, coaches do too. I think that's things. We're CEOs of our bodies and our minds. I don't want to get off on that tangent, but coaches that are unhealthy and get out of shit. It's hard. It's a hard game to coach anyway. I coach it passionately. I don't know how guys do it. They're out of shape and let their bodies go. But we got to be CEOs of our bodies and lives too. So 100% transparent with teachers, man. Work with your administration. You know, this thing is to make, I want to have a great relationship with my super, my athletic director, my principals, and my teachers. Hey, who would want to walk into a job every day where they got all this controversy? And some people like that. That ain't great culture. And I'll tell you something. You do that, you'll have so many people on your side. You'll have so many people that appreciate what you're doing for the kids and the school and the town and the team and the alumni. Because see, football is the greatest, let me think of this. Yes, game, but football is the greatest tool to bring people together. You think about this. When football comes around and it's Friday night again, all across America, man, people are just flocking to these little patches of dirt in the middle of town. And they want to say, hey, our town's better than your town. And once you get that in your mind, how much this game brings people together, it makes it real easy to understand how important culture is. You see, when you go to that football game, you see the band director and all the band kids and all the band alumni and all the band parents and grandparents and cousins and uncles and brothers and sisters. Just the band. Then you go and look down the fence of knowledge. The dudes standing up watching the game. Can't sit down in the bleachers because they're the alumni. They chewed the same dirt that these guys out here have. They want to see old big blue win, big red win, big orange win. So you got the old players coming back and their moms and dads and their cousins and uncles and brothers and sisters. Then you got the cheerleaders and their moms and dads and cousins and uncles and brothers and sisters. And you got a bunch of people. Then you got the teachers. Then you got the administration. Then you got the businesses in town. The whole town is there to see what kind of culture you have, how your kids are going to act, how hard they're going to play, what kind of pride they're going to bring to your school, your town, your team, each other. That's culture. And it's built on the platform that we're talking about. It's built through mental toughness. It's built through character. It's built through truth. The process to build a championship culture. Keep myself on my notes here. I don't like to go off notes, and I really haven't just been strictly to this PowerPoint because I don't like doing that, but it kind of helps me stay on track here. So the process. I talked a lot, and we're nearly, what are we, 40 minutes into this, Justin?
Yes, sir.
We talked a lot about, all the little stuff and about culture and the principles of the foundation that you got to build it on. And my truth, character, mental toughness, that's my platform. Whatever you believe your platform is. I just know the kind of football I want to play and the culture I want to build. I don't know. I don't speak for everybody else. I'm just saying this works for a lot of people because the truth's important. Character's important. Mental toughness is important. I just grew a man right there. I taught him how to be honest and why to be honest. I taught him how to have character and why it matters. I taught him to be mental toughness because life's going to kick you in the tail sometimes. That's our principles. That's what we build it on. Truth, character, mental toughness. Truth, character, mental toughness. That's our foundation. But the process that we build it on, the process of building a championship culture, you got to structure it. Kids ain't going to want to come sell their souls to a weight room that's got a bunch of goofing off and not organized. They don't want to come watch that crap. They don't want to be a part of that crap. Kids know. Dennis Franchione told me in 2002 the most important thing in my career. He said, you'll never fool a kid. The process of building a championship culture starts with structure. Why? Structure builds habits. Discipline. Doing what I'm supposed to do, when I'm supposed to do it, how it's supposed to be done. Builds confidence. I've done it so many times, I can do it. I can block anybody. And what one can't do, two can. We can double team you. So discipline builds confidence. I've done it so many times, it's second nature. I always hang on to a lot of sayings I hear over the years, a lot of things I believe in that why would you have a play in your playbook that you don't run 5 times a game? Not it. It's hard to build confidence in something you don't do thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. By the time these kids get to the 9th grade, they better have run power and counter thousands of times. That's how you build confidence, discipline, doing what I'm supposed to do, show up on time, work my tail off, encourage my brothers. When I'm supposed to do it, be on time, be early, have initiative when I get there. If the trash needs emptied, empty. If the floor needs swept, sweep it. If the weight room's a mess, clean it. Doing what I'm supposed to do, when I'm supposed to do it, how it's supposed to be done. Every job I do it my best. I give my best. What I'm supposed to do, when I'm supposed to do it, how it's supposed to be done. And that's how I approach things. Character. Build character. Here's what we do. We teach them. See if I can get this. We teach them a lesson every week. So they give us 3 days of 15 minutes. And so we're going to teach them a vocabulary word. We're going to teach them a life lesson. Okay, on the next day. And then the 3rd day, we're going to have them answer the questions to that life lesson and get in a group session. And we're going to talk about character and why we need to, why we do the things that we do every day, the way we do them, the reason why we believe what we believe, the reason why we act how we act, the reason why we work so hard. We're going to talk about those things every day, and we're going to give them a mantra. And that's a whole nother thing. Every day they come in, they're going to be on line. Discipline. Be on time. Toes on line. Boy or man. Weak or strong. Timid or tough. I'm a Hartshorn Miner. They say, I don't lie, steal, or cheat. I don't tolerate those that do. Every day, discipline. Build a mantra into them. Blow the whistle. Count down. 10, 9, 8. Then they better be in their lines, ready to do dynamic flex. They're done. Blow the whistle. 10, 9. They better be ready for daily 7. Blow the whistle. 10, 9, 8. They better be in there doing agility. Blow the whistle. 10, 9, 8. They better be setting up the racks for weights. 10, 9, 8. They better be ready in there all online, ready to do a finisher. Discipline. Doing what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, how it's supposed to be done. Coaches that don't drive this home don't create an edge for themselves. Yes, we're hard on kids. Yes, we expect them to be mentally and physically tougher than any human around them that surrounds them. But what's the reward? They get to be successful. And they'll know all that stuff wasn't for nothing. Because win or lose the championship, they're going to be successful in life. They're going to call you and say, Coach, we just got married and we bought our first house. Gosh, ain't that why we do it? Ain't that why we put all this time and energy into culture? Coach, had my first kid. I'm going to name him after you. I doubt that. Nobody gets named Bill anymore. So structure, discipline, character, and love. Love's important. So let's talk about structure. Structure, the definition of structure is just the arrangement of parts that make a system function. The arrangement of parts that make a system function. So we build a routine into every phase of our off season, our high school career with these kids as a football program. Okay, so let's just go over it. Our movements look like this. We're in season. Okay, then boom, they show up at this time. They're online. Boom, we do A, B, C, D practice. Okay, we got their practice. coaches know we don't keep kids a perfect world. We break them out in small groups and get 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Never leave a kid anywhere more than 10 minutes. Build your routines that never change. Let me say that again. To be successful in a great culture and a great football program, you're going to have to build routines that never change. Monday's this, Tuesday's this, Wednesday's this. It's in season. Okay, we're going to lift every day. But if you're going to establish a culture, it's got to be the same thing 21 years later for Jim Bob that it was for Jim Bob's daddy, Trey Bob. It's got to be the same thing. That helps establish a culture. And I'm talking about dudes, programs that do it at the highest level. Coaches that go out there and change the offense on Wednesday, that ain't culture. Coaches that, instead of conditioning today, let's kick a field goal, and if we make it, nobody, that's not a culture. Do I believe you need to have a lot of fun? Well, sure. Winning's fun. There's some dudes that ain't hardcore. That ain't my deal. This not the game not to be hardcore. If you ain't hardcore, pick another game. You ain't gonna establish a soft culture in this game, even though people don't understand how physical this is at the highest level in the NFL and college. Even though there have been some rules that have made it what people think is a little soft. It's not softer. The athletes are better. It's not a softer game. It's not. Getting hit in a 12-yard square is not as hard as getting hit in a square of 53.4 inches and 120 yards. Getting hit at a full run at 30 yards is way tougher. It's a physical game. It's still a physical game. And if you approach this physical game with a soft culture, or I don't know that you could build a softer culture. I don't even know that could exist, that you could build. Yeah, you would have a culture. It would be a poopy one. It would be a crappy one. It would be one that everybody's calling you for a homecoming game. You're not going to build a culture unless you're willing to sacrifice. You're going to have to sacrifice some time. You're going to have to sacrifice some energy. You're going to have to sacrifice some inspiration. You're going to have to inspire them coaches, get them in habits and routines. You see, when you're in habits and routines, when you structure things, even though it's really hard on men, even though it's really hard on kids, even though it's really hard on parents, you teach them habits at the same time. That's what structure does. It builds habits. And discipline builds confidence. So movements, build routines into phases. All phases have a structure and a routine that doesn't change. In season, we're going to maintenance phase. Off season, strength phase. Spring, speed phase. Summer, conditioning. All those phases have a different routine. When we get to that time of the year, they know when they come in the spring, boom, we're going to do ABC, out the door, baby. We're going to get fast. They know in summer, ABC, we're out the door. We're fixing to get better at the things we need to get better at. It's a routine. It doesn't change. We've done L-cone drills, 5, 10, 5, 5 back, 10 back, 5 and out. We do these 4 or 5 drills for years in a row. Years. They get so agile. They do them every day. That's culture. That's how you establish it. You don't establish with hodgepodge. I'm here. There's got to be consistency in everything you do every day. And this culture talk is a bare bones culture talk. You can go so deep and wide. It's never ending. Because you get into the phases of how you do all these things. That would be a 25, 30-hour lecture. But you have to structure it to where the movements are the same every day. They're waiting to be online at ABC time. They're waiting to be here, and here. They know where they got to be at what time, and that's how culture works. So when one man's late, he's exposed. One man don't do his job, he's exposed, and then you know what to work on. So that's our structure opportunities. We talked about in the beginning with the mission statement. If you want this kid to be better, you can't neglect him. Cultivate him. Pour water on him. Water that flower. Give him an opportunity. If you're going home, you're trying to get get out of town so you go fishing on a Friday in off season, and this kid wants you to be out there and time him on a dot drill or run a 40 or elk cone or pass set or whatever. Just like with our own kids, we can't walk away from that, man. We can't walk away from that. I've got to give him an opportunity to be better. We structure opportunities. Like we said, give them a job. Help them overcome their body, help them overcome their skill, and help them be a great student so they can create some value for
Google
themselves.
Chrome.
They can create some
Manifesting.
value for themselves if we teach them how to overcome their body, how to be a great student athlete, how to develop their skill. Then we've created value for that kid. He's created value for himself, but we have to provide him the opportunity. It's like we say all these things as coaches. I've seen it my whole career. We say all these things, but do we provide them an opportunity to be the best they can be? Many times not. If you motivate a kid and inspire him and he takes off running a mile after practice, it sure reinforce the behavior if you were sitting there at the end of the mile going, dude, you're a champ. Way to do the extra. He might do it again tomorrow. If he knows we test in the spring, boy, you're not gonna get that red shirt unless you get under 46 seconds on that 300. He might run it every day. Sure feel good for him to have his coach out there timing him. So you see, I've seen this the last probably 22 years of my career. Guys that don't put in the time to establish a culture where kids will stay and take advantage of the opportunities that you give them to get better. If there's so much that you have to do as a head football coach that you neglect to provide opportunities and give up your time, you see, the best thing you can give a person is your time. If you don't do that, you're not a football coach. You're not. You may be one on title and paper, but you ain't establishing the culture. If you ain't putting in the extra for those kids, it ain't never gonna work out. You got to give them the opportunity and sacrifice your time, your energy to help them become the best they can be. That's culture. That's culture. You think in great cultures they're gonna turn a kid away from doing extra? It's one thing I said 15 years or 16 years ago when I became a head coach. I'm not locking that weight room. That weight room will be open as long as kids want to be up there. And if I got to be up there at 9 at night, I'll be up there at 9 at night. If I got to go unlock it for the baseball players to go lift, I'll go unlock it for the baseball players to lift. But I'm not closing that weight room or taking away an opportunity from a kid. If I got to have another coach go up there and hopefully he's motivated enough to get him a lift. But if he ain't doing it, you know what? He ain't on this staff. We got to give him an opportunity and give him a chance to go get better. That's culture. That's all it is. Discipline, do what I'm supposed to do, when I'm supposed to do it, how it's supposed to be done. Structure. Okay, when you structure things that they got to be A, B, C, and you discipline them, you make sure that they do A, B, C. What does that do? It cultivates discipline. Okay? Just like I talked about a second ago, things don't change. Our coaches and our players know, hey, we're not going to keep these kids a long time in any place. Okay? We're going to discipline them, doing what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, how it's supposed to be done. We're going to structure it. They know where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, and we're going to hold them accountable to be their best. We have high standards. If you're loafing, you don't want to hear your name called, because if you're doing bad, we're starting over. If you ain't doing your job, we're starting over. This is about the team. It's always about the team. It's never going to not be about the team. So when you discipline these guys, I say discipline every day, doing what I'm supposed to do, when I'm supposed to do it, how it's supposed to be done. Discipline. Nick Saban version. Hardcore. You got to be ready to hold him accountable when he's not doing what he's supposed to do, when he's supposed to do it, or how it's supposed to be done. That's discipline. And you're the adult. You're the coach. It's your job to make sure that he is accountable to do what he's supposed to do, when he's supposed to do it, how it's supposed to be done, because he's a kid. You're the adult. I always love it when guys go, oh, we don't have no players and they won't work hard. Dude, you're the coach. He's a kid. Our kids don't play hard. You're the coach. He's the kid. You're the adult. He's a child. Our kids won't work hard. You're the adult. You're the coach. He's a kid. He's a child. Our kids won't show up on time, or they don't care. You're the coach. He's the child. You're the adult. I get passionate about this because it's real stuff, man. Every kid deserves to be coached well and taught well and held accountable and discipline and character and passion and mental toughness and truth and all the things that go into a great culture. But if you don't discipline them, God help you, man, you're cheating kids. You can't build a culture if you don't discipline the kids, especially in this world today. Especially in this world today when I believe this, and you can call me crazy, and I'm as crazy as a loon. Football's one of the last things we have to help these boys in America become men. It's one of the last true things that we have. That's why culture is important. It's a game, but it's a tool to create great Americans. And you all know how important that is right now. And if you ain't passionate about that right now, God help you. This is a great country with great men. We have a chance through this game to help this country. And I ain't going off on that because you ain't gonna get me to believe in anything that's going on right now. But I'm just making a passionate point that we have to hold these kids accountable. If you're a head coach in charge of a culture, okay, if you're a head coach in charge of building a culture, and say there's 60 kids on your varsity football team, and there's 90 kids in your junior high, and there's 200 kids in your little league. 290 plus 60 is 350 kids. So you get a chance, an opportunity, a responsibility to motivate, inspire, and change 350 lives in a year. And if you change 350, how many are they going to change? Because they did things right. They grew up with high character, mental toughness, and they always told the truth in all things. You see, it matters. Culture matters. It matters way more than people think it matters. I'm going to skip a lot of that. Character. When we talk about character, and we talk about, hey, have character. What is character? Just like what is culture? What is character? Character is mental and moral qualities of an individual. We spend time teaching character. Like I said, 15 minutes on Monday, vocab, 15 minutes on Tuesday, lesson, 15 minutes on Wednesday, group discussion over the life lesson we learned. And every lesson is to teach them an aspect of character, how to be a good man. So once we teach them this character, here's the trade-off. You give us 15 minutes a day for 3 days in character development. That's 45 minutes a week. That's 45 minutes a week. Hour and a half every 2 weeks, 3 hours a month on developing your character. You give us that time, and no coach is allowed to give you a speech when it's hot and 110 out in that old Okie heat, no wind, because it don't blow when it gets real hot when you need it. It just blows when it's cold. That's an Oklahoma thing. But when they're out there in that heat and they've grinded for 30 minutes in the weight room, 2.5 hour practice, and it ain't time to give them a speech. You spend your time teaching character, and you ain't got to give speeches. But you trade that for the lessons. They know when they come in there after the first couple of years, it's business. I set them on the floor, crisscross applesauce, right hand, left, right hand, right knee, left hand, left knee. I make them sit there, humble themselves, be a student, learn. That's culture. In character, we teach to be honest in everything. That's a good character. He's honest in everything, even if it cost him. I always said leaders are the most endangered species on the planet, and being a leader is tough. But one of the greatest qualities of a leader, to me, is doing what he's supposed to do, no matter what the consequences. It may not, I got to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. That's a leader. But as you see in America, it's not common. It's uncommon to have great cultures. It's also uncommon to have great leaders. And if you're honest in everything, you respect yourself and others. And we have to teach these kids how to respect themselves and others. That's teaching character. Teaching character is simply teaching them to be honest in everything. Truth is one of the platforms we built this culture on. Truth. The same. Be honest. That's your character. Is this guy a liar or is he honest? And then respect yourself and others. Guys, these character lessons we have, they're for every week of the year. And we teach these things. How to respect yourself. Why you think the way you think. We know right now that a human cannot outperform his self-image. You cannot perform in a manner which is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. If you don't see yourself as a champion, if you don't see yourself worthy, if you don't see yourself as having the same right to success as the next guy or the next gal, you're never going to outperform your self-image. So I got to teach you to like yourself. We do that through the weight room, because once we build confidence, once he starts doing something he couldn't do and achieving things he couldn't achieve, he starts to think highly of himself. He starts to be proud, have pride, hold himself in a high esteem. And then we teach him to be dependable, be on time, do what needs done, have initiative. If you see a job that needs done, you don't need me to tell you, do it. If it takes 3, get 2 other guys to help you. You see, building character is just teaching to be honest, teaching them how to respect themselves and why it's important to respect others, and teach them how to be dependable. You're telling me if you got 60 kids, that are honest, respect themselves and others, and are dependable, and then every year you add to that, every graduation you add to the amount of kids you're sending out into the world that are honest in everything, that respect themselves and others, that are dependable. You're going to tell me that you can send those guys out in the world and not make a positive effect on the planet through the game of football and the culture you develop in your program? Woo! My goodness. Come on. That's how it's done. We ask for players full attention, man, when they're in them lessons. And they come back. I've been getting feedback from these lessons for 16 years. Coach, you remember that story you told about the man up on the mountain that picked up a snake and took it to the bottom? Yeah. Oh man, that story, I taught it to my kids and da-da-da-da. This stuff's going to come back for years and years. You're going to affect the world in a positive way by developing a championship culture, because you're teaching character, love, and respect. You see, love's a word I never throw around either. The team is the focus of winning on the field, but the team is of individuals. And how can I bring this team together, ensure that every player in this program loves and respects one another? Well, here's why we respect one another. As you develop your culture, you have your things, your grind through the off season, your rite of passage through this physical barrier that you make them go through. You have your rites of passage. That's where respect comes from. Like we were talking about earlier. You see, hey man, Steve Rouse sitting down there, Slim and Henry's quick stop with all of his buddies from back in 08 on that undefeated team. that's respect. You know, when that kid walks up there and he was in the third grade when y'all played so and so in the playoffs, and he remembers that game, and he has respect for that guy. That's how you cultivate it in a culture. They respect each other. They I was a part of one, man. Them older guys that come around when I was in high school, man, they say good game, and you know, they'd be standing out there at the tunnel when you came out. That's great culture stuff, man. Get that alumni at that tunnel, have them stand out there and, you know, be in their jersey or their leather jackets when them kids run out. When they see them kids in town, I mean, it just, that culture just grows and grows, and it gets more powerful the more people you get going the same direction, and you know, it becomes historical, you know, stories that, you know, grow and grow and grow. By the time they get 25, 30 years old, they're really good stories by then. But that's culture, man. That's how it's done. You know, love and respect. You know, these kids respect the guys before them because they know what they went through to become whatever your mascot is, whatever your deal is. And respect is earned. They earned it because they went through the rite of passage to become, say, like when we were at Hartshorn. They went through that off season. And because they did, they immediately earned respect of the class that just graduated because they did it. If they did it for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years with the junior high, they automatically have respect because of the guys that came before them that knows what they went through was not easy, and not everybody can do it. If you got a football team everybody can play on, probably going to be a hard culture or a soft culture because, man, not everybody can play this game. It's a tough game. It's tough. Our confidence comes from the pain of overcoming our minds and our bodies every day, pushing for excellence. Shared suffering. I learned this from coach down in Texas when I was at Kaufman. The greatest bonds a human can have is through shared suffering. When you put these kids in that room in the off season, and they're in there pounding and pounding, and it's 2 hours and it's 3 hours, and it's a finisher, and it's we make it so hard that they cannot physically do it. When they go through that rite of passage, and that shared suffering, it don't matter what beef they got between them. It doesn't matter what beef their moms and dads got between them. It doesn't matter what their problem with each other is. When they're face down on that mat and they can't get up, they become one. And if you're not doing things to make these young men, force these young men to suffer together, you'll never build a championship culture. Because what that suffering does is breaks down all them other walls. Nothing mean you ain't worried about ABC bullcrap going on social media or in town or in school or last week at the dance. You don't care about that stuff whenever you feel like you can't even lift your own body off the floor and there's 60 other guys going, come on. You see, coaches really don't have to say much during that time once you establish the suffering that they have to go through to be a part of this culture. Just for example, after we go through workouts in off season, we do up downs. Okay, we build up to where we can do 20-to-1 up downs. That's 20 up downs, 19, 18, 17, 16. And then we add on leg days jump squats, and then toe raises. So it is so hard. It is so physically demanding. It is such a punishment of the mind, soul, and body. It's impossible to do all three of those exercises 20-to-1. And we make sure that they're moving together. You know, we say, hey, they get to, they say it's 20 up downs. Once they get to 20, they better be on their back, ready to do toe raises. Once they hit 20, they better be on their feet. One guy gets up late, we add one at the end. So we push
Alert
them
from
so
Google
hard.
Chrome.
We
Turn on your antivirus.
That they, by osmosis, they have to become some of the hardest, toughest, mentally toughest, mentally prepared young men on earth. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They could go fight a war when we're done with them. But we got to make them suffer. We got to make them suffer. They want the prize. They want the prize. But you don't get the prize without putting in the time, without putting in the suffering. You see, because to get the prize, it's going to be tough. And when you hit those walls, when you start getting your tail kicked, when you start going backwards and you just hold on to everything you got to stay in the game, that's when that shared suffering comes into play. And that's why great teams are able to come back from 28-31. I've seen it a lot of times because they share suffering. They suffer together. So when they're out there and the things ain't going their way, they don't bitch and fuss and complain. They've already been through that. They've already been through that. They've been through it so many times that they don't blow up in games. We try to get them to blow up every day in the off season, make them suffer together. We want them to become one. It ain't nothing to these kids when everything don't go right. It don't matter if things don't go right. Keep on pounding. Just like off season, just like our what we are at the end when we try to break them. We're gonna try to break them every day. That's a lesson like Nick Saban says. I got to figure out who you are. Been doing this for years. But once they go through that suffering, they ain't gonna have those little episodes on the field feeling sorry for themselves. If they were gonna feel sorry for themselves, I would have figured it out by the time they got in the 10th grade or 9th grade or 8th grade, because they're gonna go through this in a great culture from the beginning. It's not a deal you segregate your high school and your junior high if you if you're in an environment where you can do that. If you're not, you need to try to get to your feeders and help them with their culture, get them on board. You got to make these kids suffer. The reason they suffer is so all that stuff don't surface out on the field. I got to guarantee you that your quitter mentality that you had, that you don't have no more because we cultivated mental toughness and shared suffering in you. I got to make sure that never shows up on the field. Am I going over time, Justin?
You're good, Coach.
True culture is uncommon. It only exists in places few and far between. Think about it. Look at your state. The same team, same 15, 20 teams, always in the mix. My suggestion for you guys too, wherever you live, whatever state you're in, go find the best. Go find the best and do what they do. I'll guarantee you everything that I've shared with you guys today is going to show up in a great program. True culture is uncommon. It's uncommon, man. It's uncommon around in my area a lot because people are more worried about fishing and hunting than putting in the time. 6:30 is a late night. That's the easy day for somebody building culture. Great cultures. I'm gonna end this on this one. Great cultures have their traditions. And I always say this: you must honor your traditions. If you don't have traditions at your school, make them. Make 1, 2, 3. There's got to be things that you do that's your culture, like Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. I mean, you can implement something like that into your own program. Whatever your mascot is, boom, fist up, man. I see you in the hall, boom, Tigers. Okay. The tumors trees at Auburn, that big wins, they toilet paper the tumors trees. You guys might have something you do over a big win in town on maybe some kind of, something. West Virginia, they play country roads whenever they get a big win. Something in your culture. I'm just giving you guys these as examples. Alabama, Roll Tide. You see somebody in the Alabama hat on, if you're an Alabama fan, Roll Tide. That's culture, man. That's everybody that is a fan. Everybody that's an alumni. Everybody that's a teacher, a secretary, a janitor, everybody a part of that program knows that little, hey, boom, tigers, or whatever, whatever you come up with. But you have to establish things like that. It's not corny. It's not silly. That's how you bring people together. You got to give them their own customs, their own, what is culture, the definition of culture. If you look at the definition of a culture, you got to give them those things to develop that culture. A culture is a set of shared attitudes, values, and goals. Attitudes, values, goals. You got to give them something to bring all that together. That's culture. It's hard to beat a bunch of people that are going the same way. It's nearly impossible to beat a bunch of people going the same way. But negates the whole sentence before it. It only takes one or two. It only takes one or two that are staying outside that battle shooting the wounded. Not everybody's going to like it, but when you have a great culture, people understand that sometimes things don't work out, and they don't go to hanging each other. If you can do anything in your culture, quietly teach people to love each other, because that stuff matters. It matters in real culture. You'll never build a culture with gossiping teachers and administrators and coaches griping all the time and kids bitching all the time and parents griping all the time. You'll never have a culture. Culture at its very essence is a bunch of people going the same direction, doing the same things, believing the same beliefs. And you're going to have your 10%. I appreciate
Alert
you guys.
from Google Chrome.
I appreciate
Mind
the
Valley.
fact that you guys logged on here and listened to this today. It means a lot to me. I take this very seriously. I think it's the most important thing a football coach can do to build a program, is to develop a culture along these lines, because these things are the most important things. They're not just clinic talk. They're things that are implemented every day. Thank you, guys.
Coach, I think I speak for everybody when I say, we're all ready to run through a wall for you. So, I mean, honestly, as you were going, people were writing in the chat just about how great it was and the points you were hammering home. And, Coach said he wished you would have heard this before his season, but obviously it's a great time to implement it now, and just all tremendous stuff. There was a question that came in for you earlier. And the question was, when building your culture and you have a teacher and student on Friday night telling you you're telling your player they don't need to play because they're going to lose, how would you handle this?
I think a lot of that stuff is handled through the process. And, if they can look back on some of that stuff that we talked about in the boot camp lecture, a lot of that stuff, a lot of that stuff's handled way before you ever get to a game. And if you do have that situation, the only way you can handle it is you got to go with the guys that are all on board. And if he don't want to play, then, every situation dictates, but you're going to have to figure out a way to either keep him or let him go. If it's a problem for your program, it in your heart. If it's a kid you've worked with, never getting on board, whatever the situation is, you got to deal with it. And for that kid in his own situation. And there's never really a right or wrong answer, but I can say this. Always remember this. That's one kid. If he's on a roster with 54 kids, that's one kid. You got to worry about the guys that are out there bleeding for you. And if somebody's pumped that in his head and you haven't developed enough mental toughness in that kid to stand up to an adult, as far as that's my coach, that's my team. I tell these kids every day, the biggest place to build this culture is the dinner table, because when things ain't working out our way, you got to have the guts and the intestinal fortitude and the character developed in that off season, that program, and that culture to say, Mom, Dad, I love you guys, but that's my coach. That's my team. Miss Smith, I love you, but that's my coach. That's my team. I'm out here to fight. And if winning becomes a product of that fight, then everything worked out the way we wanted it to, but we're one. I always believe that, when you walk in that locker room the first time with them kids, we're here to become one. If you don't believe that, you don't belong here. I think I hope that is a good answer for you, but that's about all I can do on that. You're going to have those issues. That's the 10%.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Coach, it was asked in here if you were willing to share the boot camp program from earlier. Now, I will say this, Coach, his first session on the drive was actually it was the boot camp. So I'm sure they can go back to that, but he was wondering if you'd be willing to share that with them.
Absolutely. I got that. I will send this PowerPoint and that boot camp PowerPoint to Coach Grandinetti.
And I'll post it on the drive for sure.
Do whatever y'all want with it. My stuff's on there. If you want to call me, I've within the next 2 months, I will have videos of the whole entire boot camp, and I will have them on. I'll have them on Huddle.
Coach, another question. How much about your culture do you discuss with future coaches when making hiring decisions?
About everything that we talked about. This is what our coaches will get, this little book right here. That's that whole PowerPoint you just looked at, and we'll go through it. Because what's the really important thing in this is when you get to the point where you go, okay, the principles that we build it upon. If I want honest kids, do I want honest men? Of course. No truth, no trust, no relationship. If you're ever in a job where your superiors lie to you, you don't need me to tell you what needs to happen. You cannot move on without truth. And our coaches that come in, they got to know, they got to believe. And if they can't believe, and if I can't inspire them enough to be honest with themselves, there's a lot of coaches I've interviewed, and I'll be honest with you, it's not a bad thing. A lot of administrators take it as a bad thing, but there's a lot of guys that won't work for certain guys. There's a lot of guys that won't work for me because they think I work too much. But when you get those dudes in there, you got to make sure that they're good. They're good with truth, with character and mental toughness, because that's the foundation. I mean, if you guys, and I'm going to tell you this, if you guys come up with something better, please tell me. I will change everything I do if you got a better way or a better foundation. But the truth, trust, and relationship, and building character and building mental toughness, that's got to be the platform. That's got to be the platform. That's the platform which to live your life. So if you walk into this program and you're not willing to cultivate those things every day, or you don't believe in that, you surely can't have a liar on your staff. You surely can't have a man with low character on your staff. So you're looking for the same things in your assistants as you're looking for, as you're doing to build your players. So you need to tell him right now, guy, I'm looking for honest men. I'm looking for grinders that are willing to sacrifice. I'm saying all that as a head coach, as a leader, you better make sure that they get as much time with their family too. But that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the same thing you're trying to build. If that's a good answer. And I share that whole PowerPoint in probably a little dumbed down version. It just depends on who you're interviewing too. If you're interviewing young guys, they need to know. So I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. Coach, here's one more question for you. Seeing that football is the front porch of any school, how do you filtrate your culture into your admin and the school?
Well, what I talked about, if teachers are getting 2 emails from you a week, do you think that they feel a part of that program? When I give them 2 emails a week, and then once a month, I'll give them a status of the program. And that doesn't matter what season we're in. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. And at the end of that, can I help you with anything in the regards to the discipline or academic future of our student athletes? Please let me help you. And you will, when you become a partner with those teachers and administrators, guess what? Everybody's on board. You have to sacrifice your time and energy for them too. If they know, hey, coach, hey, we got to, Miss Jennings is going to be out, the whole second semester. Can you teach your fifth period class? Absolutely. I'd love to. That's how you build relationships. If you go the extra mile for them, they'll go the extra mile for you. It's the only time that we don't develop relationships with them is when we go into school and go, oh, they favor basketball here and blah blah blah, and you build all these walls. Does that make sense? You build all these walls in your culture that, oh, we don't like them, we don't like them. Hey, if you don't like them or them or them, you can't have a great culture because football is the cornerstone of every high school in America that plays football. You're not only building football, you're building every sport in the school. You're not only building academic success in your players, you're building it in everybody. Those 350 boys you're in charge of, or 450 or whatever, 1,000, those guys are going to go out into public and promote your program and positively affect your school, your town, and your team. And because you're transparent with everybody, you will be amazed the relationships that will be developed when you send your teachers 2 emails a week and 1 a month from the status of the program. When you do everything you can do for them, make yourself seen. There's nothing better than a head coach building a culture than walking through that middle school, walking through that elementary school, shaking hands with them teachers. Can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you? What can I do for you? What can I do for you? That's how it's done. And you have to do that. A head coach's job, I can tell you, I took a year off and went work for Matt Hennessy up at Pawhuska, and I don't regret that because I got to be on the other side of that. And any of y'all know that Matt Hennessy does things right, and you can always learn from someone. But that was one thing that he did well that we were on board with, is that there was just mass communication. Everybody was on board. Are you going to have the 10%, the complainers? Oh, well, sure you are, but you have to make an effort and let them know, I will do anything that I can physically, mentally do for you. And stay in communication with them. That's the key. And that's how you build it. That's how you build it. Because even if they're gripers and complainers,
Alert from Google
even if
Chrome.
they don't believe.
The motocross fault.
Oh, man, you're going to have to teach me how to fix this thing. Even if they don't believe, you're going to kill them with kindness. You're going to get the ones that won't get on. You're going to kill them with kindness. Keep loving them. Keep emailing them. And then there'll be a time that when you can do something for them, and you need to do anything you can do for anybody that needs help, if you can do it. And that's how you create that culture, and you break down those barriers with those teachers and parents. And again, the one thing that'll help you the most is truth.
Alert from Google Chrome.
You would like
Bestie.
You would like for someone to tell you the truth because you can move on from the truth. It's hard to move on from any kind of, miscommunication or lies, black magic. You got to have the truth. Hope that answered that.
Coach, incredible stuff. The status of the program emails, I find that tremendous. And that's something I'll be implementing for sure. Because that's, like you said, the communication is key, and everybody on the same page. That's what's important. So, and fellow and coaches that are in here still, and if you haven't seen Coach speak before, I'm glad that you guys came in here and did just that. And I told you, it's just the energy, tremendous. All this stuff, and so many valuable points in this whole presentation, Coach. And I know if you looked at the chat right now, you would see just so many people just thanking you and how outstanding this was. And I think anybody who watches this, and please guys, once it hits the drive, I think this is so worth sharing to any coaches that you feel like would benefit from this. So please do so. It's just incredible. And Coach, I can't thank you enough, man.
Hey, thanks, Justin. And hey, man, I ain't been on Twitter, but I'll get back on there today. You guys are doing some great things on there. And like I said, this whole deal was a process of about a week of really think tank and a brainstorm of great coaches. I had a lot of great help on this, putting it together. And I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for letting me present.
No doubt, Coach. And when you do get on back on Twitter, I think you're gonna have just a few more mentions and a few more followers after this, no doubt. So
I'll log on there and
Coach, I'm telling you, it may be overwhelming, man. People were tweeting out stuff that you were saying. You know I posted one of the quotes you said and a couple of pictures you posted and all that stuff. And it's just a testament to the value that you brought to us this morning. And I know for sure, we all absolutely, as coaches, leaders, as men, all got better today, and it's and thanks to you, Coach. So
thank you. Thank God for football, man. I appreciate you, Justin.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And fellas, once again, definitely go back and check out his earlier talk on the boot camp. But once Coach sends that to me, I will send it and post it on the drive. So just keep a lookout for that.